the 49ers, the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Cardinals. They have two things in common. And I have five other reasons as to why I believe they are the toughest division in the conference. That's coming up next. Cole Sports presents on the Daily. Well, how are you doing, VIP? I hope your weekend was well. Cole Johnson is back on the mic. My tongue is still on vacation for the weekend. On the Dailies on Tap, presented by Cole Sports, and it's Monday. And you know how we do things on Monday. We have to compile these lists. You know what they are. You know, there's reasons as to why we break down certain things, and this subject is of no exception. So I present to you the list. So on tap for this week, the NFC West, the National Football Conference, Western Conference. Now, we talked about the East and how bad they are. It's so funny that we go on the other coast and we have a different result. The NFC West, the San Francisco 49ers, the Arizona Cardinals, LA Rams, St. Louis Rams, LA Rams, and the Seattle Seahawks. Those are four teams who, if you are unaware, VIP, they comprise of the NFC West. They also comprise of the only division, at least until this past weekend, who had teams at or above 500. So that would qualify them to be the best in the NFL. And there are five reasons as to why I believe they are. And unfortunately, we don't know about it because, well, the division, they're played in a place where we don't get to see much of the West Coast if you're in the Eastern time zone, right? You know, you're more understanding of and you're more aware of what happens on the East Coast. That's why we hear First Take and Undisputed and all those other talk shows talk more endlessly about the NFC East. You don't hear them talk about the NFC West unless you have one of those teams just go absolutely crazy, or you have someone like a Russell Wilson who's having an MVP-like performance, which you're having both happen right now. And I could go down as to what the team has and what the team doesn't have, but I'm not going to do it this way. I'm going to do it in another way. Here's five reasons as to why the NFC West is the toughest division in the NFL, the National Football League. Number one, look at the coaches. Look at them on the sidelines. Cliff Kingsbury of the Cardinals, Kyle Shanahan of the 49ers, Pete Carroll of the Seahawks, and Sean McVay of the Rams. Look at them. All of them think in a maverick type way. All of them think closest to that would be Kyle Shanahan, because sometimes he gets bogged down in calling traditional style plays in moments where you have to take risks. But look at the resume of all of these coaches, including Shanahan. Cliff Kingsbury, he was the quarterback and then the head coach of Texas Tech before he became the Cardinals head coach. You have Sean McVay, who he was plying his trade in different NFL teams before he became the Wunderkind and the I guess you could say the poster child for what you would want in a young whippersnapper of a head coach. You have Pete Carroll, who's 70, but he acts like he's 40, very youthful in spirit and exuberance. And then you have Shanahan, who his lineage, of course, ties into his father Mike's. And for those who don't know Mike Shanahan, he was the former coach of the Washington NFL franchise. Before then, he was also the former head coach of the, well, now Las Vegas, but at the time it was Los Angeles Raiders. Basically had a cup of tea before he got put on his keister. You may know him best for being the
offensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers during the early 90s, and the head coach during the late 90s of the. I consider them to be in tandem, actually, when the two of them led the Broncos to back to back world championships. So you have maverick thinking head coaches who have varying degrees of pedigree, but they think differently. You can see how they.
Look at the non-quarterbacks that comprise of these teams. The non-quarterback superstars
Like Bobby, like DeAndre Hopkins and Chandler Jones for the Cardinals. Like, Rams. You see these teams, they know how the others are. All four teams have a physical nature about them. So the Seahawks, by having a defense buoyed by the LOB or Legion of Boom, but having a physical defense and a run-oriented offense to protect their quarterback, and I'll talk about him a little later. And the NFC West gets down. So when you have a physical style,
it's more. And then we get to reason number 4. And reason number 4 would be just look at the QBs. The QBs tell a big story because with the Rams and the 49ers, with Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo, respectively, you have two QBs who are traditional in style, who need a running game to beat them. I mean, need a running game to accentuate what they do best. Sorry about that. In golf, it's a little more play action oriented. With Garoppolo, it's a little more of a game managing situation. I'm not calling him a game manager, but he operates best in game managing situations. He sort of is like more of a point guard than the game rests on the arm of the talent, if that makes sense. So I had a conversation with someone who was quick to say Jared Goff is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Then the 49ers and the Rams played. While Garoppolo threw for almost 300 yards, Goff struggled to make 50% of his passes and threw 2 picks. My point to him was they are the similar style of quarterback. Neither one of them are going to be elite, but neither one of them are bad. They just need a running game to help them out, which is a big key for both of them to succeed. And if that is what both teams need for their quarterbacks to succeed, then their whole team succeeds because it's all about managing expectations with those two quarterbacks and those two teams. Conversely, with the Cardinals and the Seahawks, Kyler Murray and the, to me, MVP frontrunner in 2020, Russell Wilson, they run. I'm not saying that they are running quarterbacks. I mean, they are bold to scramble whenever is necessary. They will scramble at a drop of a dime if the reads aren't there. Reads, not at the sign of the first read not being there, they take off. No. They go down through a progression. Even Murray in his second year, he even goes through a progression. If they aren't there, he tucks the ball and runs. And both know what to do when they get in the open field and they have enough yards.
both of them slide. And both of them slide very well because both of them also are, or I should say were, Major League Baseball prospects. Murray for the A's, Wilson for the Rangers. But both were MLB prospects. But also both, unlike Garoppolo and Goff, undersized, 5'10". And they would have to either look through holes or move the pocket or use their feet. And sometimes it would aid in the running game themselves and sparking the team to do special things. And this leads me to the final point as to why the NFC West is the toughest division in the conference. They don't get respect. I want you to go with me for a second here. Are they like the NFC East, where they have teams that play in Dallas, Philadelphia, Washington, and New York? No, they're not those teams. What they are, they're teams that do play in one big market in LA, one pretty decent market in San Francisco, and one nice sized market in Phoenix. Seattle is probably the smallest of the four. But unlike the East Coast, the West Coast gets very little in terms of focus. Now, back when Monday Night Football was the game of the week, which would be the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, you had this team called the San Francisco 49ers who would play at least 3, if not 4 of those games a year. So people knew about this team that was dressed in scarlet and gold. And they would endlessly play either the Washington NFL franchise or the Giants or the Rams. And we got a chance to know them because they were on Monday night. Now you're saying to me, Cole, you have this same thing with Sunday night. It's a little different. Sunday night, it's the market split a little bit heavier. Hence why ESPN didn't push hard Sunday Night Football on their programming, because they knew they were competing and going uphill against pretty stout competition. NBC, they have a bigger reach. However, even though, yes, Sunday night is the biggest game of the week, in today's NFL, it doesn't draw the interest and doesn't pull the numbers like Monday Night Football on ABC did. ABC did. Because you had a weeknight game, a weeknight primetime game, not a weekend primetime game. There's a difference between a weekend audience and a weeknight audience. And so we got a chance to know the 49ers and somewhat the Rams and somewhat the Seahawks when they would have their good times. Not necessarily Cardinals, but we got a chance to know those teams, but you didn't really know them all that well because you didn't have the focus on the rest of the division in prime time on a weeknight. Fast forward to today, you don't have that focus now, ever. So there's your difference. And you have that disrespect because they're not the NFC West. They're not even the AFC West. They're not the AFC East. And they're not the AFC North. So they have to fight for their share, and they fight hard for their share, and they do well. So those are the 5 reasons as to why I believe the NFC West is the toughest division in NFL. Look at the coaching. Look at the non-stars who are quarterbacks. Look at the non-quarterbacks who are stars. Look at how the quarterbacks are played. Look at the style of the teams because they're physical and they love to run. And any entity who feels they lack respect, they play much harder. That's the NFC West for you. And we're going to be entertained for the rest of this year by them. Now, if you want this shirt that I am wearing, this is one of my favorite shirts actually, you can find that in the description box below. It has all the details for you. And Which team do you think will win the NFC West? Will it be the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the 49ers, or the Rams? I want to know your answer. Click that like button. Like this video. Comment below. And also hit that notification bell, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for any and all premieres that emanate from this channel. Well, thank you so much for your time. I love you, VIP. And this is Cole Johnson, signing off, saying that this has been yet another installment of Cole Sports on the visual and on the daily.